In this interview, Jorrit, a young entrepreneur, will tell you the story and the lessons on how he acquired $1.6 million of investors' capital. Hey, Jorrit, could you please introduce your startup and yourself?
I'm Wilhelm Laubach, co-founder of URImesh. Very shortly, with URImesh, we're speeding up the legal due diligence process end to end. I'm not going to bother you too much with that, but basically it's when an acquisition of a company happens, then the legal due diligence needs to be performed. And that's kind of like going through all the contracts in a certain data room and searching for red flags. That's very shortly what it's about. But as you were mentioning, so we were able to get quite some traction in the previous months, and then recently raised 1.6 million of that.
Yeah, that's impressive for there are not so many startups, especially nowadays. I think for the last couple of years, it became more difficult to get investors. So we will explore how you got to this point that they were willing to invest such a pretty substantial amount.
Yeah, sure. Pleasure.
It's a very unique niche. So it seems to me that you had some contact and you saw some challenges. But let's start from the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey, like a quick overview. How did it all started?
Well, it actually started more than 2 years ago. So I was studying computer science myself. So I'm a tech guy, however, now focusing on the commercial aspects though. But I was like a tech guy. I was doing like those many computer science side projects. I mean, I built like automated Sudoku solvers, all these kinds of stuff, a genetic algorithm some way. I mean, many fun projects, but the thing was like, it were all like fun projects, but not really commercializable projects. I did ones that I tried to commercialize, but however, didn't really work out that much. So it was more like fun building. And then at my last year of studying, when I was almost graduating, I started realizing that, hey, I really don't want to do a 9 to 5. That's the moment actually when I actively started searching on the one hand for a great ID, also for a co-founder, I have to say, because I didn't know Jasper yet. And Jasper is my co-founder now. And eventually, I came across, or I met Jasper better. We basically did we just had like a great evening at the bar. And it was clear from the beginning that he was like very technically strong, much more than I was actually. And I still remember that he had the very initial idea of, let's try to build basically a knowledge base search driven by AI. So that was the very initial idea. And I still remember that was like a Saturday evening, and he told me like, okay, I have this idea and I really want to build this. And I told him, yeah, okay, just build it and I'm going to start selling it. So, so that was Saturday evening. He built it by Sunday evening. So I received a LinkedIn message from him on Sunday evening, where he basically showed a very basic MVP. And it seemed cool, of course. And from that moment on, I started the selling process. And then, of course, over time, we got to our first customers. But that was like the very first idea, I would say.
You mentioned quickly you tried to commercialize one of the projects. What went wrong?
The thing was like, I was focused only on the. You mean when I was studying, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was focusing only on the technical stuff. I mean, I didn't want to, or I wasn't trying to get customers. I wasn't, or not actively. I was more like, okay, hopefully suddenly, it was more a B2C platform, by the way. So hopefully suddenly people will come across my platform. Yeah, of course they're not gonna come suddenly across my platform. But yeah, it was more like, I still remember, it was like on the one hand an image application that I kind of tried to build, and it was a lot of fun. I think I spent 2 to 3 months building it, and I mean, in hindsight, it didn't look bad. But however, like no one was using it, and I also suddenly started having more student work, like study work, and then like projects that were going on and all that kind of stuff. So then eventually I was like, okay, skip this. But it was more like fun building it than fun commercializing it.
Sometimes I feel like those exact failures, they are the stepping stones towards success, because you learned what is important and what not to do. For example, just focusing on the technical stuff.
Yeah.
That's a very common, I think, issue with software startups.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I really underestimated actually the value of sales. So with URImesh though, we did that then from the beginning because I was only focused on sales and Jasper was only focused on the technical side. But however, you really need that focus on sales and focus on outbound and all that kind of stuff. It of course depends on if it's like B2B or B2C, but in our case, the B2B application, there definitely it was required to have that also, that sales driven motion basically.
Also, as a startup, people underestimate how much marketing budget you need for B2C projects.
Yep.
It's much higher usually than B2B.
Exactly.
So you started this knowledge base. What were the next, how did it evolve? I guess it was not very successful.
Well, actually, that's also a funny story. So indeed, that was our very first MVP. And my very first outreach is just like, it's laughable, but it was so bad. It was like, I was sending mails to the info mail addresses. So, I mean, I still remember that I sent, I don't know, 50 or 100 mails to info whatever company. And I got one reply. And yeah, one. I actually like now think that I even wouldn't get any replies. But however, I got one reply and it was from an accounting firm in Leuven. It's like another city here in Belgium where I was studying at the moment. And the accounting firm told me that actually they were interested in this idea and that they were kind of like looking for something like that. So I was like, okay, this is nice, our first project. So we didn't have any CRM or whatever. I was just like, okay, just gonna go to that guy. So I went to their building and I kind of explained the vision. It was more explaining the vision and we did have that MVP, but that MVP was more, I mean, it was still very early, but nonetheless, they kind of saw the idea. And we basically sold them a consulting project of, I believe it was like a 20K or something to build our backbone, I would say. so that was like the first proposal I did. And one way or another, I still remember that moment. Suddenly they sent me a mail. I accept. So they accepted the proposal of a 20K to just do it as a consulting. And the thing additionally on that is that also we had a consulting to build it, and then we still had like the licensing each year for the project. So that's kind of like how we did our first proposal. It kind of worked well for them. I mean, they were very happy. We also, of course, did like, for example, a session regarding AI in accounting, and then we explained like the possibilities of AI. So they were like actually like really happy customers, and they were starting to use our platform. And that was maybe like the first step towards, okay, seeing how the platform was being used. Actually, because it was an accounting firm, we noticed that it was being used mostly for their internal knowledge regarding legislation. So they had lots of internal notes regarding VAT legislation and all that kind of stuff. And we came to the conclusion that they've used it mostly for just asking questions regarding those VAT legislations. So that was like, that gave like the click of us of, maybe we should start focusing more on the law field or the legal field. And that's how we went towards like more legal tech. And like to take it maybe further on that. So we've been experimenting a lot then with law firms because we started approaching these then. And our main conclusion there was that searching through case law and legislation was a great idea, but however, it wasn't really worth paying for. So that's also something that we noticed is that, yeah, it may sound so cliche, but however, there was really that difference between like having a nice have product and a need to have product. And that was definitely a point where we felt like, okay, this is currently just a nice have that we have.
How did you realize that it's just nice to have project?
Well, actually, we scraped legislation of Belgium. We scraped also some case law. However, that was like a first hard thing there is that not all case law in Belgium is accessible. I'm not sure how it is at your country, but however, it's often the case. And that was like a first burden. But nonetheless, we were able to get quite some legislation in the tool, some case law also in the tool. And we went to those law firms, But as said, I was also always able to get like a meeting to show them the tool. And then I kind of like proposed, okay, it costs you an 80 euros per user per month. And yeah, you could just see their faces. It wasn't going to happen. So that's basically how we realized that it kind of wasn't nice to have.
You started your career as a technical person, but then you switched to sales and marketing. How was it for you?
Though I have like computer science background, I was also like always very interested in like just talking with people, trying to do some sales, but very hunter sales and not too organized. And that's still somewhat the case. So that's not perfect. Of course, we do use a CRM now, and I kind of like have those tasks that I set up and all the things. But however, I'm not like a sales guy. I'm still like the more the entrepreneur who's just trying to do some sales instead of like the full trained sales guy. But nonetheless, so we were with two technical people. There was definitely that need for just someone who does more the commercial side. And I kind of love that idea of doing more that. So I basically was in like for, okay, let's give it a shot. Let's see what it gives. And it worked out, I would say.
Why do you think they accepted your offer with your first business idea?
Actually, I would have to ask them, of course. But however, what I do believe is one thing I've learned is that maybe you can't underestimate the likeliness of like a certain vibe that you give. I mean, I definitely had like the feeling that guy, he was just, I really want to support those young people who have like that great idea. That's basically what I'm trying to say. So was it a fantastic idea? No. Was it a fantastic product? Definitely not yet. Was it well pitched? Also definitely not yet. But I still remember we were like very driven at that location. We were like, you really have to buy this. This is going to be awesome. And that guy was like, okay, I believe you. It's going to be awesome. And that's basically, I think, why he bought our solution.
I really like how you see it as from a pretty neutral, objective perspective. Not like, oh yeah, we're amazing, everything is amazing, we are the kings, and now we invest 20,000 in new startup, we will be the best of the best. But you understood that it's like where you are at.
Yeah, exactly. We also, I mean, maybe one thing to add on that is that actually I still remember that we tried to raise too early. I have to say that. So at that moment that we were at the searching through case law and legislation, we already tried to raise money. So I do believe that was like our first thing we tried to raise was like 350k euros. But it was just too early. I mean, we didn't have traction yet, or maybe like one or two clients. Our USP was not clear at all. I mean, there were many other competitors who were like at least a bit more focused on something. We were just like shooting around more. So we had like no USP. We were also not too confident at that moment regarding our solution as well. So, I mean, we definitely tried to raise too early. Fortunately, then we realized that we kind of like, and maybe I can go more in depth in a sec, but we kind of like found our niche over time then regarding those due diligences. And then later we noted that, okay, now we do have traction. Now we do have a product that works. Let's now try to raise again. And then basically worked out.
Why did you decide to raise money instead of bootstrap, especially since your business partner was able to create the first minimal viable product within a weekend?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. Actually, really great question, because actually we've been thinking about bootstrapping it through even till a few weeks before doing the actual raise of 1.6. We kind of like that idea. I mean, it's just awesome to have many customers just generating revenue without having external money, because then you're really like all the way in. But however, yeah, why do we want to raise? Because we wanted to make speed, also because it was, I mean, the hot startups were raising, right? So we also wanted to go faster. And that's basically the main reason. It was about the speed. You can't go as fast without external money as you can, of course, but just.
How did you realize that you need to find a better niche or to niche down? And what was the process?
Actually, as I said before, so it was basically when we noticed that, okay, this is a nice have. There are some, on the one hand, also some problems with the availability of that data. Then again, there are problems with, so availability of data, then also the accuracy, because case law is just very, it's very nuanced. So it wasn't a simple solution either. We first actually were maybe trying to partner with a data provider. So you do have here in Belgium, you have two big players. It's Lachi Intersentia and then Wolters Kluwer. So we basically tried to partner with these players as well. However, that wasn't really an easy process. It took quite a long time. We were accepted in an accelerator of Lachi Intersentia though, but however, we still weren't really able to set up that partnership practically. So eventually we realized, okay, we have a data problem. As long as we can't have that data, and as long as people are not really willing to pay, then we're gonna have to do something, right? So we fortunately had some customers in the M&A space. And we were allowed to basically just walk a few days along with them and kind of like just see what problems they were having. So we really just went a few days along with them. We kind of like not talking too much, just checking out what are you guys doing. And yeah, it kind of came clear, of course, that the M&A lawyers, their main occupants is doing due diligences. And that's when we realized three things, I would say. So on the one hand, due diligence is super, super costly. So the hourly wages of those, or better, the hourly tariffs, I guess, of those M&A lawyers are super high. So legal due diligence is very costly. It's also being done by associates who work so many hours a week. So they work like 60 plus hours a week. So unfortunately, they make some mistakes as well. So the accuracy was definitely something we could work on as well. And then thirdly, talent retention is also definitely a thing. So we started realizing that partners at law firms are at least trying to do something against the talent retention. And with our tool, we were maybe able to like make the work a little nicer. And with that, that was like our third point, I would say, that we were focusing on. So yeah, that's kind of like how we then eventually got towards that space. We fortunately had already a tech that worked very well on that searching through data. We just had to tweak it to search through virtual data rooms, which is where the data resides within an acquisition. So we tweaked our tech, we tweaked our entire UI UX. However, we were able to like in a few weeks again get like a full-fledged DD product then. And then from that moment on, it actually got quite fast, because actually then we were generating some extra traction from new clients. We were getting that feedback from like, okay, this is bringing us a lot of value. We really want to pay for this, and that's kind of like how we got in that niche.
That's really amazing idea to go along with them, with M&A people, and see how they work, what their pains are. Was it awkward for you and for them when you asked them to do that?
Great question. We fortunately knew some M&A lawyers who were like forward thinking. So maybe you know Harvey, but Harvey is like a very large AI tool that's like hot in legal tech. Basically, it's the biggest legal tech tool, I would say. And some lawyers here in Belgium were also like, oh damn, Harvey just released, and this would be awesome. And so we were actually, or some M&A lawyers were like, okay, so you guys are not having similar vision, but at least want to do something in legal tech as well. We want to support that. And because they really wanted to support that, or better, they were like very open for us to like just come to the office and sit along with them and just check out how they're working.
I think the fact that there was such a hype around AI, and AI is so mind-blowing, everyone in their niches, there were some people at least who were looking for solutions for their industry. So you were at the right time, at the right place, which is really amazing. That's
I would say so. That's actually exactly what happened, I think.
What happened when you created this tool? How did you go along to acquire clients?
Because first, of course, the tool was bringing value, but however, it wasn't working perfectly yet. I mean, there were many tweakings required. Also, the accuracy was not top notch, but I kind of like just started outreaching. So what I did is cold calls. LinkedIn worked pretty well for me. So what I did is just outreaches through LinkedIn to M&A lawyers, and I was like, "Hey, I'm Jorrit. We have this new tool. You should check it out." And some people were interested, especially the more forward-thinking M&A lawyers. So that's basically what I did mostly, and then some cold emails as well, of course. So I would say like these three were the initial, I would say lead gen magnets. Because of course we at the beginning we were also not really known in the market. So at that moment of time, no one really knew us. So we had to start creating that brand awareness, so to say. And then over time, I still remember that our marketing wasn't bad in that sense. So we started then generating reports, and then on those reports we were like putting some ads, and then also because like we interviewed some M&A lawyers in those reports, it was kind of like, oh, that people I know, and you interviewed him for your report, so I must read that report. And with that, there was like some kind of like snowball effect, and then here in Belgium, we started getting quite some brand awarenesses that way.
So it was an industry report or knowledge report that can be helpful for jurists, for lawyers.
Yeah, exactly. For us, that worked very well, actually. Just that industry report, basically. Because also lawyers, they really like to hear what other people or other lawyers better are thinking. And with that, we were kind of like doing that thought leadership idea with reports. We're also doing it now with blogs. We're doing it with other things as well. We're going to probably do roundtables in the future. So that's a concept that works very well in the legal field, I would say.
That's a very smart idea. Did you write these reports, or were they automatically generated?
No, actually, we wrote the reports ourselves, but of course, we didn't like write it ourselves. We just how we actually approached this is we started with a questionnaire lists. We reached out to the big lawyers that we wanted in the report. We had someone from BDO, just because BDO is a big logo, of course, as well. So we were able to like get that person in our report. We sent him the questionnaire, and then he replied all the questions in the questionnaire, and then from all those replies, we kind of like made the first version of the report. And then of course we had like the reviewing phase, so they went over it. They were like, okay, let's tweak this and that, and then eventually we were or we got to like a final version. But what I also believe was very important is that we did the how to say, like the design of the report was really, really great. And that way, suddenly we were like very professional with, or seen as very professional. And I feel that was also a very important factor for that report.
I wonder why the first lawyer accepted all this extra effort. Did you know him, or did he know you already?
Most people we didn't really know that well. No, it was more like, okay, they of course knew that we existed. We had a great chat with them. I mean, they were like willing to help us, and we were like, okay, oh, that's so great. Thank you 1,000 times. And they were like, okay, if you're thanking me that much, then I'm definitely willing to do to do a report. And I mean, we've just been always very friendly towards everyone, and that really paid off for us, I would say.
Yeah, that's really great. So you also, before asking for those answers, you also establish some kind of relationship, some kind of rapport. Yeah. What I was surprised about was the cold calling part. Can you explore that a little bit?
Yeah, that one is a painful one, actually. But yeah, cold calling is never nice, of course. The fun thing is for most law firms, the phone numbers and also the mobile numbers of the people are directly on the website. So with that, you had like a direct line towards them. But however, the thing is like, how do you approach cold calling? And I mean, I've never really done it in the past, although I did it like for one project before URImesh. I did it where I was like building websites, and then I also did like some cold calling to like a list I found online, and then from that I built like a few websites, but that's like apart from that. And so what I did is I built a very, very basic script. I had like a certain so if they say this, then you go that way. If they say another thing, you go another way. And of course, some people were not so amused that I was calling to sell them something or to get to know them. But I mean, you always have that, I guess, and it's more a numbers game. But some people were like, okay, oh, nice that you're reaching out. They're always happy to help you. And then we got them on a call either, or I just went in person to them. And then once you've had that initial contact, it goes much smoother. But it's getting that initial contact, and then basically saying to them like, hey, I really want to speak to you about a nice topic. That's always like kind of hard, of course.
Whom did you contacted in cold calls? The lawyer or their assistant?
Actually, I always try to get to the partners, because the partners are the ones making decisions. However, they're also the ones who don't have time. so I mean, I've tried out most partners. Sometimes you have innovation managers as well at law firms. Tried out these as well as COOs of law firms. That's a thing, apparently. But yeah, I've tried these, and then I found that, of course, the fastest decision makers are the partners. I also tried some associates, but however, the associates were always like, I can't really choose anything, or I can't like really do anything without my partner approving. So that didn't really work. So yeah, that's kind of like how I approached the.
Were you already using the CRM, or which kind of CRM?
No. So actually, we did way too late. So I first didn't use any CRM at all. It was more like, okay, I have 300 mails in my mailbox. I have to reply to these, and I may not forget to follow up and all that kind of stuff. So then I started following it up a bit in an Excel sheet, but that was also a mess, of course. And then eventually, after way too much time, I started using a CRM, and it felt complicated, so I didn't really use it that well then as so that was also a thing. But fortunately, over time, I realized, hey, maybe I should put some effort in getting to know how a CRM works. And then, I did. And then now, of course, more than happy that I do have a CRM, because otherwise I would be entirely lost.
Which CRM do you use?
Well, first I was actually using Pipedrive, but we switched to HubSpot.
Why?
Hard to say, actually, because I'm not... Actually, I was kind of happy with Pipedrive as well, but it was more because here, especially in Belgium, because we were like trying to or thinking ahead already, like if new salespeople wanna start, and most salespeople are most common, I would say, with HubSpot. So in that sense, I checked out HubSpot. They do have, of course, quite a bit more functionalities than Pipedrive. It's also a bit more complicated though. But yeah, we eventually went ahead with a migration then from Pipedrive to HubSpot, and now happy actually in HubSpot.
Before we go to the investors topic, were there any important lessons that you learned in acquiring customers?
Many things. So one thing was, I started with those very formal emails, very long LinkedIn messages, very long emails, whatever, because I thought these people are lawyers. I have to be formal to them. That didn't work. And then I switched to, we're the crazy startup. I'll put up my crazy startup hats and just do crazy outreaches. And to be fair, that kind of worked. So it may be lawyers, but nonetheless, they like that vibe. And now I don't wear that t-shirt, but now I always wear like a t-shirt with like legal due diligence. There's an AI for that. And then I go with that t-shirt to meetings where the partners are all in like their very chic clothing, but it kind of works. They just love it that you have that young guy who's the tech guy who's also has that computer science background, that who's coming here to sell us a product that just looks amazing and that they kind of want to sell. So that's definitely one thing. I've noticed, I would say. And then of course, don't underestimate the value of a CRM, but we already went over that. And maybe thirdly, don't underestimate like the setting of more a vision instead of already like a product. Because at the beginning, our product was like, far from perfect. However, if you just sell them like a vision, they were willing to buy in just for the vision and not for the product actually. So that's also something that we recognize.
So let's go to the investors part. How did it develop?
It was quite a journey, I would say. But I mean, especially because you have to know that we have quite some angels, and then as well as a VC fund. So you have to like keep everyone aligned. But maybe let's start at the beginning. So we started getting ready for like an investment because we were getting that traction. We were not just having 2 customers anymore. We suddenly were having 10, 12, something like that. We also got some revenue from these, and that also proved, of course, that that's okay. There is a business model, and people are willing to pay for it. So in that sense, we were fine there as well. So again, that was that, and then we started tweaking our pitch deck, and the pitch deck also was not anymore that bad looking pitch deck, but suddenly we had a fine pitch deck that sketched out the rough idea. And so that's when we started with raising. Basically, we were able to of course we first knew some people who were interested in that, and then we reached out to these. We also, I have to say that first, at the very beginning, we got some offers that were just unacceptable. I mean, still remember that we had some offers of like, hey, 350K for, I don't know, a 30% or something, or 35%. I mean, I'm not going to take that, right? But and initially over time, of course, we kept evolving. And then just did quite some outreaches to those angels. And one thing I've really realized there is like it's a domino effect somewhat. If you're able to convince some angels, then others are quicker to follow. You really have to I mean, I'm gonna say, somewhat build up that FOMO. Of course, it has to be driven by something. Like it has to be driven by your metrics, by your whatever, by your product and all that kind of stuff. But nonetheless, I mean, in the end, you're still selling a vision mostly. You're selling yourself as like the person, like, hey, this team, we can make it, so it's team mostly, of course, also the market, products maybe less, and then metrics, I mean, if it's at all important, then just for showing traction. So that's kind of like how we approach that. And then I mean, eventually we got those angels convinced, then also like a VC fund convinced, and that's basically how we went further.
How did you contact the angels?
That was like a hard one. So we did have some introductions. We also worked together with like some kind of firm who knew quite some angels. So that, I would say, mostly it was by warm intros, because we're here in the Ghent ecosystem. We're also in the Winter Circus. It's like really a whole ecosystem. So in that sense, if one angel, suddenly we have one angel who was really convinced of our product and our traction that we had, and then he started like saying so in a WhatsApp group, and then other angels also were interested, and with that, it was really that networking effect. Maybe one final thing to add on that is that also I still remember that I did like an outreach to Roland from Aikido, and Aikido is a startup here in Ghent. They already raised like, I believe, 20 million or something. And he never did angel investments before, but I was like, hey, would you be interested in either doing an angel ticket or just like, give us some advice? And he was like, yeah, sure, come ahead to the office on a Saturday afternoon. One way or another, the office at the Saturday afternoon at Aikido was pretty packed there, and they got me quite some advice, and then from there I also got quite some intros to other angels. That's kind of like how it went.
Did you go to social events to meet the decision makers, or did you contact them over LinkedIn, or how did it go?
again, mainly warm introductions. But for example, again with that Aikido, so I was like at an Aikido event, and then there were like other people also, and then I started connecting with these. So I mean, definitely for angels, the personal connection is so important. So that if you just drink a beer along with them, yeah, I mean that makes you more likable. And of course that's one thing. And then we also pitched for quite some VCs, and of course VCs are a little more formal than those angels. And then eventually we were also able to like get Syndicate One, was a pre-seed VC fund. We were eventually also able to like convince them, but that's also because I knew Hans Kajaert there. He's someone who I knew for quite some time, and then over time we already had that relationship, and then of course he knew what we were doing, and then if you have that relationship, it just helps a lot.
Did you learn specific lessons what to do or what not to do with in terms of investors, angels, and maybe later VCs?
Better be well prepared before raising, because if you have like really a well-aligned pitch deck that's has been reviewed by some people, that's like key. Also, in my opinion, maybe the pitch deck is a bit overrated in that sense of like, I like doing more of a chatty conversation while walking through some slides, of course. But I mean, the pitch deck is not the backbone you have to follow, but it's more like a conversation. And yeah, here you see some slides that help you basically going through the conversation. So that's definitely one thing I've learned. So be prepared. Your pitch deck is like more something that you can use as backbone. And then maybe thirdly, I would say that especially for angels, I mean, make sure that you keep them all aligned. That's pretty important. It may not take too long, because otherwise you get that momentum sometimes that's being lost. So have to be careful of that.
Which kind of people do review those pitch decks? Did you ask like people who you know, or specific who are offering this as a service?
Well, great, because actually first our pitch deck was not that well. But then I went to that Aikido building once I told you, and there was Madeline. And Madeline is actually, she has been a VC investor before at Peak Capital in the Netherlands. And I still remember that Saturday afternoon as well. So she really went along with me through these slides, and she was like, okay, this is not good, this is not good, this is not good. I should change this like that. I basically changed those things, and suddenly over time it became much clearer, our pitch deck. So that was like key as well, I would say. If I would do it again, I would first do some trial runs or some dry runs on investors that don't really matter. So I mean I mean just an investor either far away or entirely out of scope or whatever, but just like doing a dry run, getting feedback from them, and then over time going towards like the investors that really matter, of course.
Would you reject certain investors, and why?
Yeah, great question.
Except of course if the offer is not good.
Yeah, you know, that's the whole discussion of like smart money. And I once was at like a presentation of one of our angel investors now, Matthias Gierams from Lighthouse, by the way. And I still remember that he told me like, okay, like everyone wants smart money, but in the end, you just want money. And if it's smart money, then it's nicer. And I can't relate more. I mean, were we looking for smart money? Of course we were. But were we looking for money first? Yes. We just wanted to raise. We needed those resources to scale the team. And of course, if they can like bring a lot of value, for example, Roland from Aikido, he's bringing a lot of value. Michiel Denis, who worked at Henchman before, but who's also in legal tech, he also brought so much value to us already. So is that worth a lot? It definitely is. But however, I mean, at that moment in time, we just needed money. And yeah, that's kind of like my point on that.
What happens if you don't like an angel on a personal level? Like when you talk with them, you don't click with them, or it's not that important?
That one is harder because actually I was saying, of course, like, okay, smart money or not smart money, but nonetheless, I mean, if it's really, I mean, a person that you don't get along with, then I will be more cautious, of course, because, okay, maybe they can't do too much, but yeah, it's still someone on your cap table, right? And with your investors on your cap table, even if they're not smart money, you still want to like just present your results, and you still want to make sure that they actually get their value out of you, right? So in that sense, I would be cautious with taking someone with you on a journey that you really don't like.
But I guess you were lucky just meeting people who you can connect with.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I get along with my investors, fortunately. So in that sense, that sense.
My friend, he had a startup, car sharing startup in Netherlands, and he got 6 or more even business angels. And at a certain point, it was just a chaos because some of them were very risk averse and they wanted to go to a different direction and they were fighting, and it's catastrophe for them.
Yeah. I've actually heard a story of also a friend of me who was also a legal tech, who recently did like an exit, and he was also like, okay, 3 of my 4 angels were happy, and then one was less happy. Yeah, it's a hard balance, and I mean, if you're an angel investor, I mean, you're of course hoping for your 100x or 1000x, but as long as I mean, we're also like going for that, of course, but it's still that gamble, and yeah, it's a hard one.
How did you go along with the contracts for investors?
Well, maybe to add on that, because actually I didn't tell that yet, but first we actually tried to raise with a convertible, like a CLA, maybe convertible loan agreements. It's basically it's like a safe in the US, where you just give like a discount and then whatever. And actually it worked kind of well because actually for a founder that's very founder friendly, and it started working out. And I think like we were at 750K raised, or like going to raise, who were like willing to sign the CLA. But nonetheless, I suddenly then some investors were like, okay, if you mean with the CLA, we really want to put our shoulders behind it, and if we just get a discount, then we can't really put our shoulders behind it. So in that sense, they really then asked for like, okay, can we make an equity round for that? And for us, that was fine as long as like we got a well valuation, of course. And then eventually they did like a proposal of like a valuation that we could find ourselves in. That's how we then basically moved forward for that price round more. But
did you have lawyers who created this contract?
So basically we then went for the price rounds, and then we used a law firm, Cresco here in Belgium, who basically made all our contracts, and I mean, we were kind of happy with that, but it's of course like an expensive thing to have like all those contracts being made up. But yeah, they've made up all those contracts, and then it took quite some time before it was all, of course, signed, especially because we got quite some angels. But yeah, I mean, went fine eventually.
So the first 750,000 euros, there were some kind of loan that can be transferred to equity, or how does it work?
I mean, we didn't really have the CLA, but it was more like 750K like euros that was like people were willing to sign the CLA, and then eventually, yeah, we just switched towards the price round. So eventually, no one did the CLA, but however, the CLA works kind of like we're giving you, for example, a 750K. At a valuation, or actually in our case it was like an unpriced round, so you basically just get like a 20% discount, and then the next round there is a valuation that has been determined. For example, if we then do a real seed round of, I don't know, raising for example 3 million at, let's say, a 15 million valuation, then they get like a 20% discount on that valuation. But the thing is, like the period between the CLA and then the price rounds, the angels already wanted to put their shoulders behind it, and if they do so, then they just get like discounts, so it wouldn't make sense for them to put their shoulders behind it. So that's kind of like was the main takeaway there.
How did your work and life changed compared before the investment and after?
We were already full in before the investment, so in that sense I wouldn't say that it changed too much. The biggest change was, of course, that it's unlike the things that we do during work, because actually beforehand we were with 2-3 doing it all ourselves, while now we are more focused on hiring and like management more, of course. But nonetheless, I mean, before the investment, we were already like working from 8 in the morning till, I don't know, 10 in the evening or whatever. And yeah, now it's still the case. So in that sense, that didn't really change that much, of course. It's more like the assignments, or better, the tasks that we're doing during the day that has changed, instead of like the work-life balance, because I'm afraid that there's not really too much work-life balance right now.
I can imagine you have to manage more now, and before you were doing more day-to-day tasks. And now you have a whole team probably that you have to manage.
Well, exactly. So it's more now like making sure that the team in general does like does the right things, and yeah, of course, like the for example, we have someone else also now doing sales, so that definitely helps that I don't have to do the sales anymore alone. I still do sales, of course, but it's not me anymore. Not me alone anymore. We have someone who's doing more of the marketing. So, for example, who does customer success also takes the marketing on him. So that way, I also can like do less marketing, and you just have a little more structure there, and doing a little more the management of the people instead of like just the things themselves. But you're still wearing like 1,000 pets or 1,000 heads though. So in that sense.
Awesome. That's so much valuable advice. Maybe some last tips for people who are in your path, but not as far as you are already. What would you recommend them?
Actually, I do have typical the advice of just do it, in the sense of like just start with it, just like we did. However, on the other hand, I also sometimes want to say like think twice though, because I still, I mean, now it's fine, but I still remember that the time we were really raising the 1.6. That was a very stressful time, because you have like all the investment, or all the angels better, all with their own ideas, and suddenly they can be a little more hesitant than other times. So in that sense, that were like very stressful times. So, and then I also thought like, why did I start this? So, but nonetheless, I mean, we're past that now. So I'm definitely saying again, just go for it. And have that startup mindset, and really that hustling mindset, not I mean, not that corporate mindset, but just like doing it, checking out what works, just doing the cold calling, running against the wall, and then changing maybe your course a little and running against the wall again. But you see what I mean. So that's that basically.
Yeah, I totally get it. I think for those who haven't been entrepreneur, they don't. It's a bit difficult to understand. But for those who have done that, that's explains it pretty well.
Yeah, I suppose that running against the wall is kind of like part of the entrepreneurial journey. But yeah, I mean, it's fine as long as we learn something from it. I guess that's probably the main takeaway there.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Would you like the audience to do something to connect with you on LinkedIn, or just?
Yeah, actually would love so. So maybe on the one hand, definitely feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. So yeah, Jorrit.
Yeah, we will add the link in the description.
Perfect. So definitely feel free to do so. And of course, if someone knows an M&A lawyer, may also introduce, of course.
Amazing.